There is a place where the sun seems to have been carved with greater intensity, where colors don't just paint landscapes, but tell ancient stories. A country where the past dances with the present in every plaza, every gesture, every flavor. This is Mexico, a land of contrasts, of mysteries, and of a beauty that defies all description. Get ready to journey through breathtaking waterfalls, jungles that whisper ancient secrets, and seas that kiss the land with the tenderness of a living legend. Sumidero Canyon. In the state of Chiapas, Mexico, massive stone walls rise, appearing to tear through the sky. This is the Sumidero Canyon, a geological colossus with roots that go back to the formation of the planet itself. Over millions of years, the relentless force of water and the unyielding power of time carved this deep gorge, creating one of the most stunning natural sceneries in Latin America. The history of the canyon is ancient, marked by tectonic shifts, erosion, and the slow yet powerful action of the Grijalva River. This stone chasm, which in some sections rises more than 3,280 feet above the riverbed, is both a geological wonder and a relic of human stories, myths, and struggles. It is said that the ancient Zoque people regarded the canyon as a sacred site, a rift opened by the will of the gods. It was there, between shadows and cliffs, that they performed rituals and sought answers to the mysteries of the world. To these native peoples, Sumidero was not merely a landscape, it was a gateway between the earthly and the divine. Later, during the Spanish colonial period, the canyon became a setting of resistance and tragedy. In one of the region's most painful stories, a group of indigenous people, pursued by the conquering forces, chose to leap from the cliffs rather than submit to slavery. This act of desperation and bravery became a living memory of the canyon, echoing to this day between the stone walls. The Grijalva River, winding between the canyon walls, is the lifeblood of this ecosystem. Its green waters carry not only sediments and life, but also ancient secrets. Boats glide gently across the surface, transporting visitors who, upon entering the canyon, are overtaken by an almost reverent silence. Chichen Itza. In the Yucatan Peninsula, amid the dense vegetation and the ancestral heat of Mayan lands, rises one of the most fascinating achievements ever conceived by human ingenuity, Chichen Itza. Monumental and enigmatic, this ancient city-state echoes the whispers of a people who, with precise mathematics, deep astronomical knowledge, and a unique worldview, left eternal marks in stone. Founded between the 6th and 7th centuries, it was for many years the political, economic, and spiritual center of a civilization that mastered both jungles and skies with equal brilliance. At the heart of this universe is El Castillo, the Pyramid of Kukulkan, a structure that impresses not only with its symmetry and grandeur, but with its alignment to the solar cycles. Each equinox, serpent-like shadows, slither down the steps of the pyramid, simulating the arrival of Kukulkan, the feathered deity. The city breathes symbolism. Every temple, every ball court, every ceremonial platform was built with a purpose that went beyond the physical. The Maya did not merely inhabit space, they ritualized it. But time, as merciless as ever, left its marks. Wars, droughts, and social transformations led to the decline of Chichen Itza. The city that once pulsed with life and ceremonial fervor was gradually overtaken by the forest. With the arrival of European explorers and archaeologists in the 19th century, a new chapter began. Careful hands began removing the jungle stone by stone, revealing not only structures but secrets, inscriptions, sculptures, and traces of a civilization that understood far more than previously imagined. The staircase of El Castillo, with 91 steps on each side plus the top platform, adds up to 365, the number of days in the year. The orientation of temples with solstices and equinoxes, observatories built to track the movement of Venus. Agua Azul waterfalls in Chiapas. In southern Mexico, where the Sierra Madre de Chiapas mountains meet the lushness of the tropical rainforest, the waters leap in an eternal dance. These are the Agua Azul waterfalls, a liquid sanctuary where nature reveals one of its most enchanting faces. There, among the sounds of leaves, bird songs, and the gentle roar of the falls, time seems to take on a different rhythm. The waters that create this spectacle come from the Otulun, Shumuljar, and Tulija rivers, which join to form a hydrological complex of rare beauty. Their color, a nearly unreal turquoise blue, results from their chemical composition, rich in mineral salts and carbonates, with a low concentration of sediments. When the sun shines on the rapids, the water gleams in hues ranging from crystalline to deep cobalt. For millennia, these waters have shaped the limestone of the region, forming natural pools on different levels and small cascading waterfalls that flow like liquid steps carved by the Earth's patience. Mineral deposits left by the water slowly build natural dams, creating a landscape in constant transformation. The landscape of Agua Azul is not only a geological masterpiece, but also a testimony to the vitality of the tropical biome. On the banks and surrounding areas, rich biodiversity thrives. There are towering trees, lianas, wild orchids, and a discreetly active fauna. Monkeys, toucans, butterflies, and reptiles, all living in harmony with the constant sound of falling water. Hierve el agua. In the arid mountains of Oaxaca, where the wind dances among cacti and time seems to trickle down the rocks, lies a place that defies the senses and logic. Hierve el agua, which in Spanish means the water boils, is a name that may confuse at first sight. There, where one might expect steam and heat, what you find is a silent spectacle of cold waters slowly cascading down the slopes, forming what from a distance appears to be a petrified waterfall. Hierve el agua is a solid illusion. It is not a typical waterfall, but rather a unique mineral formation, the result of centuries of calcium carbonate and other minerals accumulating from water that emerges from local hot springs. When these waters rise from underground and flow over the cliff edges, they partially evaporate, leaving behind a white film that, over time, builds the massive stone curtains we see today. The resemblance to a waterfall frozen in time is so striking that many travelers stand in silence before the scene, trying to determine whether what they see is the work of nature or of an invisible sculptor. And in a way, it is indeed natural art, a liquid sculpture shaped over thousands of years, drop by drop, mineral by mineral. But Hierve el agua is not only a geological phenomenon, it is a meeting point between science, history, and the sacred. The waters that flow from the mountain were believed to be healing by the Zapotec people who inhabited this region for millennia. For them, these springs were not mere water sources, but places of energy and communication with the spiritual world. San Miguel de Allende. Nestled in the mountains of the state of Guanajuato, this colonial gem is more than a destination. It's a living memory, where past and present intertwine in every cobblestone street. Founded in the 16th century as part of the commercial roots of the Spanish viceroyalty, San Miguel de Allende grew among Baroque churches, stone mansions, and vibrant plazas. Its name honors two essential figures: the Archangel Michael and Ignacio Allende, a hero of Mexican independence born there. The city, which played both stage and actor in decisive chapters of Mexico's history, still preserves its rebellious spirit and creative vocation. Walking through San Miguel is more than a stroll. It's an immersion into the soul of a city that breathes art. On every corner, contemporary art galleries share space with traditional workshops, while musicians and visual artists fill the squares with their craft. For decades, the city has attracted creators from around the world, drawn by the unique light that bathes its rooftops and the inspiration born of its contrasts. This cultural magnetism is not new. Since the mid-20th century, San Miguel de Allende became a refuge for artists, intellectuals, and foreigners, especially Americans, who found there not only beauty, but an authentic way of life. This international presence transformed the city into a melting pot of ideas, without ever erasing its deeply Mexican identity. And what an identity it is! Mexican Baroque finds in San Miguel one of its most sublime expressions, especially in the Parroquia de San Miguel Arcángel. Its pink towers, inspired by European Gothic cathedrals, pierce the sky like hands raised in prayer. Behind that facade lie centuries of devotion, religious festivals, and community gatherings that still define the rhythm of the city today. Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl. Popocatépetl, whose name in Nahuatl means mountain that emits smoke, is a living presence, an active colossus that rises over 17,700 feet above sea level, its silhouette visible from hundreds of miles away. At its side rests Iztaccíhuatl, the White Woman, a name also rooted in the Nahuatl language. Unlike its fiery brother, Iztaccíhuatl sleeps. Her mountainous body forms the outline of a reclining woman, her head facing the sky and her feet resting on fertile earth. Legend says she is a sleeping princess, immersed in eternal slumber, waiting, perhaps, for a reunion with her warrior lover. The story of Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl is, above all, a tragedy, a tale of love and sacrifice where passion defies fate. According to Nahua tradition, Iztaccíhuatl was a princess of incomparable beauty, and Popocatépetl a brave and fearless young warrior. Bound by a deep love, they were separated by the traps of war and deception. When Popocatépetl went to war, Iztaccíhuatl waited anxiously for his return, but a false report reached her ears that her beloved had died in battle. Devastated, the princess succumbed to grief and sorrow, falling into an endless sleep. Upon returning victorious, Popocatépetl found his beloved lifeless, cold as the snow that now covers her shoulders. In despair, he carried her body to the mountains, built a pyre and remained there beside her, guarding her with a burning torch. But beyond the legend, these giants hold real stories and deep layers of time. Popocatépetl is one of the most active volcanoes in the Western Hemisphere. Since pre-Columbian times, its eruptions have marked cycles, altered landscapes, and shaped civilizations. Xochimilco. To the south of Mexico City, where the concrete of the metropolis gives way to aquatic vegetation and morning mist, lies a living relic of Mesoamerican history, Xochimilco. A labyrinthine network of canals, chinampas, and traditions, Xochimilco is not just a colorful tourist destination. It is a vibrant testimony of cultural resilience, harmony between humans and nature, and ancestral ingenuity that defied water to cultivate life. Xochimilco in Nahuatl means field of flowers. And it is no ordinary name, it's a living prophecy, a promise fulfilled every dawn when the first rays of sunlight reflect on the calm waters of the canals, bathing the floating flowers in shades of red, yellow, and lilac. But long before the tourist rides and festive celebrations, there were people who saw water as an extension of both body and soul, the Xochimilca. This people, one of the 7 Nahua tribes that migrated to the Central Valley, learned to shape the landscape in order to cultivate survival. With unmatched creativity, they developed the chinampas, artificial islands made of layers of mud, reeds, and organic material floating on lakes. This ingenious agricultural system, known as chinampa agriculture, transformed swampy lakes into fertile gardens, allowing for abundant harvests in every season. The chinampas were not just fields, they were sanctuaries. Each island was surrounded by ahuejote trees, whose purpose was to anchor the land, protect the soil, and purify the water. In this ecosystem built with wisdom, corn, beans, amaranth, and flowers grew side by side, nourishing both body and spirit. Montebello Lakes. Located in the state of Chiapas, near the border with Guatemala, they make up a national park created in 1959. And more than just a protected area, they are an ecological, cultural, and spiritual treasure. Each lake has its own name, its own hue, and its own personality. Some say they are like sleeping spirits, some calm like monks in meditation, others playful like children chasing sunlight. The colors range from turquoise blue to emerald green, deep almost black blue to purple tones at dusk. This palette, created by the precise mix of minerals, lakebed composition, and sunlight angles, is a natural alchemy that no painter would dare try to imitate. As visitors walk among the lakes, they don't just follow paths of dirt and stone, they travel the invisible roads of time. At each curve, at each viewpoint, a new fragment of the world reveals itself. The scent of damp wood, the call of endemic birds, the reflection of clouds on the surface, everything seems to conspire to remind us that when Earth is protected, it still knows how to be poetry. The region was, and still is, home to indigenous peoples, Maya, Tojolabal, Tzeltal, voices that inhabit the forest who know the secrets of the plants and the names of the winds. To these peoples, the lakes are not just landscapes, they are entities. Beings with will and presence. That's why even today some lakes cannot be crossed or entered without spiritual permission. There is respect, there is silence, there is listening. Legends circulate like the breeze through the trees. It is said that on very quiet nights one can hear the whispers of ancient gods rising from the depths of the water. It is said there are portals to other worlds hidden within them. But beyond the myths, What impresses most is the harmony between human and nature that still survives in this corner of Chiapas. Paricutin volcano. Amid the vast plains of the state of Michoacán, in the heart of Mexico, an unprecedented phenomenon forever changed the landscape and the lives of local communities. It was February 20th, 1943, when, under the astonished eyes of a farmer named Dionisio Pulido, the ground began to tremble and a deep underground whisper echoed beneath his feet. In just a few hours, what had once been a peaceful cornfield became the birthplace of one of the most remarkable geological events of the 20th century, the birth of Paricutin volcano. The story of Paricutin is not just the story of a volcano. It is living proof of the planet's primal power, a window into Earth's fiery core. Unlike most volcanoes whose origins are lost in geological time, Paricutin was born before human eyes. For the first time in modern history, scientists were able to observe, in real time, the emergence and complete development of a volcano, from its beginning to the end of its eruptive phase. The day began like any other for the people of San Juan Parangaricutiro, a Purepecha indigenous village deeply rooted in tradition. Dionisio and his wife Paula were working in the field when they heard a muffled sound, like distant thunder beneath the soil. Moments later, a crack opened in the earth, releasing hot gases, ash, and small lava bursts. Within a single day, a volcanic cone began to rise, growing at a terrifying rate, over 16 feet in just 24 hours. In the weeks that followed, Paricutin continued to grow. Eruptions were constant, sending ash columns hundreds of feet into the sky. Molten lava flowed down its slopes, devouring everything in its path. In less than a year, the volcano had reached a height of over 980 feet. The villages of San Juan Parangaricutiro and Paricutin, from which the volcano takes its name, were slowly buried by lava and ash, leaving behind only remnants of what had once been home to hundreds of people. Palenque. Among the dense tropical forests of Chiapas in southeastern Mexico rises one of the most enigmatic cities of the Mayan civilization, Palenque. Quiet and timeless, it rests beneath the shadows of ancient trees and the distant calls of wild birds, guarding within its stones the echoes of a glorious past. Its original name, Lacamar, Place of Great Waters, once rang through its plazas and temples over 1,000 years ago, when gods still walked among men and kings rose as intermediaries of the divine. Unlike other great Mayan cities like Tikal or Copan, Palenque did not sprawl across vast plains, but flourished vertically, in harmony with the region's mountainous terrain. Its meticulously sculpted structures were not just functional or symbols of power. They were cosmic stages, architectural representations of ancient myths aligned with astronomical precision, built to connect sky, earth, and underworld. Palenque reached its peak between the 7th and 8th centuries after Christ, during the reign of one of the most iconic Mayan rulers, Kinich Janab Pakal, also known as Pakal the Great. He ascended the throne as a child, but his reign, which lasted nearly 7 decades, ushered in an era of stability, artistic advancement, and monumental growth. Pakal died in 683, after Christ, but his legacy was carefully preserved. His tomb, hidden within the Temple of the Inscriptions, is considered one of the most important archaeological discoveries in the Americas. The stone slab covering his sarcophagus, carved with images tied to mythology and the cycle of rebirth, has inspired scholars and dreamers alike. Some have even interpreted it as evidence of extraterrestrial contact. Quintana Roo. On the shores of the Caribbean Sea, where crystal clear blue meets the horizon and the salty breeze carries memories of ancient civilizations, lies the state of Quintana Roo. A vibrant territory of thick jungles and transparent waters, it holds beneath its surface much more than postcard beaches. Long before hotel chains and paved roads, long before the arrival of the conquistadors, this land was already sacred to the Maya people. Entire cities rose from the dense jungle, pyramids that reached toward the heavens, and observatories that decoded the movement of the stars. Here gods were invoked in rituals, offerings were cast into the depths of the cenotes, and the land was revered as both mother and guardian. The Maya saw Quintana Roo as a portal between worlds. The cenotes, these natural well-like formations fed by underground rivers, were not merely sources of fresh water. They were also gateways to Xibalba, the underworld. It was to these sacred places that priests conducted purification rites and sacrifices, seeking to maintain balance between the visible and the invisible, between man and the divine. For centuries, cities like Tulum, Coba, and Muyil flourished among the trees. Their temples rose organically, as if they had grown from the very earth. Their stelae told stories of kings, wars, and alliances, while their elevated roads, called sacbes, connected distant communities along sacred routes. In Quintana Roo, the Maya Empire left deep marks not only on stone, but also on the way of life that still endures in the region's indigenous communities. Acapulco. At the foothills of the Sierra Madre del Sur, along Mexico's Pacific coast, stands a city that, over the centuries, has become a symbol of natural beauty, a refuge for celebrities, and the stage for intense historical moments, Acapulco. Beyond its golden beaches and warm waters, Acapulco is a living testament to the complex tapestry of Mexican history, marked by conquests, reinventions, and acts of resistance. The history of Acapulco begins long before the arrival of Europeans. Indigenous peoples like the Tlapanecos and the Nahuas had already settled in the region, making use of its rich waters and fertile soils. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in the 16th century, Acapulco was quickly recognized for its strategic value, a natural harbor that would serve as one of the main gateways between East and West. During the colonial period, Acapulco's port became a key part of the famous Manila galleon trade route. For over 200 years, Spanish galleons crossed the Pacific Ocean, linking Acapulco with Manila in the Philippines. Along this route traveled Oriental silks, Chinese porcelain, spices, and other exotic goods that turned Acapulco into a commercial and cultural vortex between continents. But prosperity also brought danger. Corsairs, pirates, and rival European powers coveted the port, forcing the Spanish to fortify the city. Thus was born the Fort of San Diego, still today one of Acapulco's most iconic historical landmarks. An imposing structure with thick stone walls, it was designed to protect what was, at the time, one of the most profitable trade routes on the planet. With Mexico's independence in the early 19th century, Acapulco lost part of its commercial relevance. Trade routes shifted, geopolitical interests were redirected, and the city entered a period of decline. However, this hiatus was only a pause before a reinvention that would come decades later. Baja California, Sea of Cortez. The Tlapanecos and Nahuas shaped the land with ancestral wisdom. Here, on steep hillsides and in tranquil bays, they lived in harmony with nature, drawing from it their food, culture, and meaning. With the arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century, Acapulco's destiny would be dramatically altered. Hernán Cortés, driven by a thirst for expansion and riches, saw in that bay a point of connection to what he considered the other side of the world. The Pacific became a new frontier to explore, and Acapulco its gateway. This is how the Manila Galleon was born, one of the longest and most dangerous maritime trade routes in history. For over 250 years, ships laden with Chinese porcelain, fine silks, spices, and precious metals crossed the oceans between Manila and Acapulco, establishing a bridge between Asia and the Americas, between East and West. But the wealth that passed through Acapulco also awakened ambition. English and Dutch pirates prowled the seas, and the walls of the fort of San Diego were built as a stone shield against their attacks. A pentagonal fortress that still silently guards the port, that once shaped the colonial destiny of New Spain. Puebla. In the heart of Mexico's Central Plateau, surrounded by the imposing shadows of the Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl volcanoes, flourishes a city whose history intertwines with colonial roots, the deep flavors of the land, and the unbreakable spirit of its people. Puebla. A name that echoes like a chant among Baroque cathedrals, cobblestone streets, and the whispers of national memory. Founded in 1531, Puebla de Los Angeles did not rise over indigenous ruins like so many other Mexican cities. It was planned, mapped, and dreamed by the Spanish as a link between the port of Veracruz and the capital Mexico City. Its geometric layout, orderly plazas, convents, and churches proclaimed the promise of a new world, orderly, Catholic, and opulent. But Puebla soon became more than just a waypoint. It evolved into a center of production, intellectual life, and resistance. Its people, a mix of Spaniards, indigenous groups, and mestizos, shaped a unique identity where Baroque religiosity coexisted with artisanal creativity and a culinary strength born in clay pots and guided by anonymous hands. It was in Puebla that Mexico achieved one of its greatest victories. On May 5, 1862, a poorly armed and outnumbered Mexican army faced and defeated the French forces, at the time considered the most powerful in the world. The Battle of Puebla became a symbol of resistance and national pride. To this day, that date is celebrated not only in Mexico but also in the United States, as a tribute to courage in the face of the impossible. Nevado de Toluca. Known in Nahuatl as Sinantecatl, which can be translated as Naked Man, the Nevado de Toluca is the fourth highest peak in Mexico, standing at over 15,000 feet in elevation and one of the few mountains in the country with a road leading directly to its crater. But long before the arrival of automobiles and tourists, this mountain was revered by native peoples as a sacred site. Here, among snow-covered peaks and volcanic lakes, indigenous cosmology found a home. For the Matlatzinkas and other groups of the region, the Nevado was not merely a mountain, it was a living being, a spiritual entity, a point of connection between the earthly realm and the divine universe. Offerings still found today in its frozen lagoons, those of the sun and the moon, bear witness to centuries of faith, ritual, and reverence. With an altitude exceeding 15,000 feet, the Nevado de Toluca challenges the body and inspires the soul. The thin air demands slow steps, the profound silence invites introspection. At the summit, the view reveals more than distant valleys and cities. It reveals just how small we are in the face of the Earth's vastness. But the Nevado is also a geological memory, a now extinct volcano that was once colossal and active, shaping the geography of central Mexico through its eruptions. Today, its crater holds two lagoons formed by melting snow, surrounded by rocky slopes seemingly painted by time. These frigid, silent, and deep waters hold more than minerals. They hold myths. Mexico City. Before it was Mexico, this valley was Tenochtitlan, the Mexica city built atop the waters of Lake Texcoco. Founded in 1325, Tenochtitlan was a marvel of engineering and urban planning, with elevated causeways, navigable canals, temples, and bustling markets. It was the capital of an empire expanding through the mountains and valleys of Mesoamerica. It was here that Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés arrived in 1519, mesmerized by the sophistication of that city on the water. And it was also here that, only 2 years later, colonial destruction ushered in a new era. Tenochtitlan fell. On its ruins, Mexico City was built, a new center of power, of faith, of domination, and of deep cultural fusion. Since then, Mexico City has been a stage for everything: wars and revolutions, colonial liturgies and popular uprisings, art, architecture, urban utopias, and profound crises. It is a city that lives all its eras at once, a city where Baroque art meets muralism, where Mexica ruins lie beneath Spanish plazas, where struggle and beauty coexist on every corner. But the city is more than monuments. It is people, millions of voices. People who came from all over the country and the world, transforming this ancient valley into one of the largest urban centers on the planet. A megacity that breathes in many languages, accents, traditions, and ways of occupying space. Walking through Mexico City is like crossing centuries in a few blocks, from the historic center, with its monumental cathedral built upon the stones of Tenochtitlan, to the modern neighborhoods of Polanco and Santa Fe. From Coyoacán, where Frida Kahlo painted her intimate universes, to Tepito, where survival itself is a daily form of art. Monte Alban. High atop a rugged mountain in the Oaxaca Valley, like a silent sentinel guarding time and land, rests Monte Alban. Not just an ancient city, not just an archaeological site. Monte Alban is a stone enigma, a monumental testimony of civilizations that built empires long before the world knew of the Americas. Founded around the 6th century BCE, Monte Alban was not born as just another village, but as an ambitious project. A city planned and carved at the summit of a mountain over 6,200 feet in elevation. An architectural and urban feat that reveals the ingenuity of the Zapotecs, the people who thrived there for more than a millennium. From up there, the world seemed within reach. The fertile valleys, trade routes, and distant villages all could be seen and in some way controlled. Monte Alban was a capital, a ceremonial center, a place of power and reflection, a space where politics, religion, and astronomy were intertwined in every precisely placed stone. The Zapotecs not only built temples, plazas, and observatories, they shaped an identity. They created one of the first writing systems in Mesoamerica, left records in glyphs, crafted calendars, and developed a complex social structure. Monte Alban was the beating heart of a civilization that knew how to look to the sky and understand the rhythms of the earth. The stelae and sculptures scattered across the site are more than art. They are narratives. Among them are the famous danzantes, human figures in strange, contorted postures, some with expressions of pain. For a long time, these figures were interpreted as dancers. Today, it is widely believed, they depict sacrificed prisoners, defeated leaders, and humiliated enemies, a warning of power, a reminder of dominance. Tlacotalpan, Veracruz. On the calm banks of the Papalopan River in the state of Veracruz rests a town that seems suspended in time, Tlacotalpan, a name that sounds like music, and indeed lives to the rhythm of fandango corridos, gentle tides, and stories shared in the shade of colonial porches. Though small, the city holds the vast soul of coastal Mexico, tropical, baroque, and resilient. Tlacotalpan was not born of haste or brute force. It took shape slowly, shaped by the waters, the winds from the Gulf, and the hands of fishermen, artisans, and poets. Its name comes from Nahuatl, Tlacotalpan, place between the lands. And truly nestled between river and mainland, between past and present, this unique town was built. During colonial times, Tlacotalpan served as an inland port, a strategic point for river trade between the tropical zones of Veracruz and the major urban centers of New Spain. Through its docks passed precious woods, cattle, tobacco, and stories, many stories. It was a river-facing town, shaped and sustained by the current. To this day, its economy, culture, and pace of life are still dictated by the river. Unlike many Mexican towns, its urban layout does not follow the symmetrical patterns of Spanish planning. Tlacotalpan bends to the will of the river. Its streets are wide, its homes are low and colorful in pastel tones, with clay tile roofs, high doorways, and carved wooden windows. A singular aesthetic recognized by UNESCO as a World Cultural Heritage Site. But more than its buildings, it's the atmosphere that captivates. Cacahuamilpa Caves. For many, entering the Cacahuamilpa Caves feels like crossing a threshold between worlds, from the surface's warmth and light into the damp, reverent twilight of the underworld. The cave opens like an ancient mouth, and from that moment on, everything changes: acoustics, rhythm, and the perception of time. Inside, it is the realm of living stone. Formed over millions of years, the caves are one of the largest cave systems in the world, a vast network of giant chambers, winding galleries, massive columns, and natural sculptures. That seem to defy logic. Stalactites and stalagmites grow as if reaching for each other, forming shapes reminiscent of curtains, human figures, animals, and even Gothic cathedrals. But the Cacahuamilpa Caves are more than a visual spectacle. They carry history. They hold spirit. For centuries, they were known and revered by indigenous peoples of the region. For the Chontales and other native groups, these caverns were the dwelling place of deities, spaces for rituals, and connections to the world of the dead. A natural sanctuary where the earth speaks, in droplets, echoes, and shadows. Even after Spanish colonization, the caves retained their mystery. For a long time they were forgotten, feared, and avoided. It wasn't until the 19th century that they began to be systematically explored. Since then, their fame has grown. Today they receive thousands of visitors each year, yet despite human presence, they remain untouched in their essence. San Cristobal de las Casas. In the green mountains of Chiapas, surrounded by morning mists and the respectful silence of the forest, rests a city that pulses as the cultural, spiritual, and historical heart of southern Mexico, San Cristobal de las Casas. A city that not only houses lives, but holds stories. A city that resists and reinvents itself across times, beliefs, and diverse voices. Founded in 1528 by Spanish conquistadors, San Cristobal was designed as a colonial stronghold in Maya territory. It was initially named Villa Real de Chiapa. But over time, the name changed to honor Bartolomé de las Casas, the Dominican friar who fought here against the abuses committed against indigenous peoples. The city's name became more than a label, it became a declaration. San Cristobal has always been a meeting point of tensions, of cultures, of worlds. On one side, colonial structures, red-tiled houses, Baroque churches, stone-paved streets aligned with military precision. On the other, the enduring and powerful presence of the indigenous Tzotzil and Zeltal peoples, whose worldview echoes in markets, in weavings, in languages, and in rituals. Walking through its streets is to experience the deep soul of Mexico. On every corner, a market of vibrant colors. In every square, a story told in whispers, in song, in resistance. Here, time is not linear, it is cyclical. The city lives in a spiral, where the past speaks to the present and the future is drawn from memory. Valle de Bravo. In the mountainous interior of the state of Mexico, surrounded by pine forests, mirrored lakes, and rolling hills, lies a place that seems shaped by the meeting of nature and human contemplation. Valle de Bravo. A town that inspires stillness, introspection, and at the same time celebration. A refuge, a mirror of the Mexican soul in its most serene and resilient form. Valle de Bravo began as an indigenous settlement. Long before it became a destination for rest or spiritual retreat, it was home to Matlatzinca groups who lived here in harmony with the mountains, rivers, and agricultural cycles. Spanish colonization brought Catholicism, adobe architecture, and the church bells that still today mark the rhythm of the town. But the essence of the place and the bond with the land was never lost. During the 20th century, Valle underwent a quiet transformation, from a rural village to a coveted destination for artists, writers, thinkers, and families in search of peace. The Valle Dam, created in the 1940s, changed the landscape. Where once there were fields and rivers, there is now a body of water that reflects clouds, mountains, and dreams. A lake that became a symbol. What sets Valle de Bravo apart from other cities is not just its aesthetics, it's its rhythm. a slow, almost meditative pace, a tempo that invites listening to nature, to your own body, to others. Perhaps that's why the city has become a center of contemporary spirituality. Here many seekers find their path. Mazatlan, Sinaloa. On the shores of the Pacific Ocean, where the sea meets the land with strength and poetry, rises a city that for centuries has danced between port and beach, between labor and celebration, between the foam of the waves and the sound of the Sinaloan band. Mazatlan, a name that means land of deer in Nahuatl, but which today also carries the weight of history, culture, and Mexico's coastal resilience. Mazatlan was born of encounters between indigenous worlds and Europeans, between sailors and fishermen, between traders and dreamers. Officially founded in the 16th century but inhabited long before that by indigenous groups like the Tahus and the Acaxes, the city began as an outpost and grew into a vital port on Mexico's Pacific coast. During the 19th century, Mazatlan flourished as one of Mexico's major commercial ports. Its deep, protected waters became the starting and ending point for ships crossing the ocean. The world flowed through it, goods, ideas, music, accents, and flowed out, local products, handicrafts, seafood, and the resilient spirit of a people living by the sea. Mazatlan's historic downtown still bears the marks of this golden age of maritime trade. Buildings influenced by French, German, and Spanish styles, cobblestone streets, colorful facades that defy salt and time, a setting that seems frozen in time, yet pulses with life every day. Because Mazatlan doesn't live in the past, it lives with the past. The city is also synonymous with music. It is the birthplace of the Sinaloan banda, a genre that blends the brass of jazz, the rhythms of polka, and the festive soul of Mexico's northwest. Here, music doesn't only play on stages, it fills the streets, the markets, the beaches. In Mazatlan, life has a soundtrack, and it's loud, joyful, vibrant. Guanajuato. Among colorful hills and alleyways woven like the threads of a living tapestry, there exists a city that seems taken from a Baroque novel. Guanajuato, a city of gold, silver, and legend. A city that does not reveal itself immediately. It whispers, bends, surprises. A city that carries in the stones of its tunnels, in its colonial facades, in the echoes of its theaters, the dramatic and resilient soul of Mexico. Founded in the 16th century under the name Real de Minas de Guanajuato, the city was born from mining. The earth's depths revealed a once unimaginable abundance of silver. In a short time, Guanajuato became one of the most important mining centers in the world. Beneath the surface, deep tunnels. Above it, golden churches, stately mansions, streets that defied grid lines. But Guanajuato's history is not just about wealth, it's also about struggle. At the top of a hill stands the monument to Pipila, the folk hero who set fire to the door of the Alhóndiga de Granaditas in 1810, marking one of the first acts of Mexico's independence. Guanajuato became a stage for revolution before the rest of the country awakened, and it never stopped being a land of courage. It is a city that defies linear sight. Its narrow streets rise, fall, disappear, and reappear in tunnels, stairways, and curves. Guanajuato was not meant to be seen all at once. It was meant to be discovered slowly. Around each corner, a new detail. In every alley, a story. And few cities tell stories like Guanajuato. Legends like the Callejón del Beso, where two lovers defied distance and fate with a kiss between balconies. or the real stories of miners who shaped the city with their hands and sweat, or the eternal memories captured in the famous muertos of the Museum of the Mummies, faces frozen in expressions that seem eager to keep speaking. Taxco de Alarcón, Guerrero. Nestled among the mountains of Guerrero, like a cluster of white houses clinging to steep hillsides, lies a city where time doesn't pass. It echoes Taxco de Alarcón. It's a place where every cobblestone street tells a story, where every wrought iron balcony holds a secret, and where the gleam of silver reflects not only the sunlight, but also the memory of a handcrafted, Baroque, and resilient Mexico. Taxco is more than a city. It's a revelation. Originally an indigenous village before the Spanish conquest, it was transformed in the 16th century when the Spanish, captivated by the shimmer of minerals, began mining silver. Thus was born colonial Taxco, a blend of European ambition and indigenous landscape, of Catholic faith and mixed heritage hands. The city shaped itself to the terrain. Nothing there is flat. The streets rise and fall like serpents made of stone, forming labyrinths that defy maps. Cars must be small, steps must be cautious. Yet every turn, every slope reveals a new angle, an unexpected view, a dome emerging above the red tile rooftops. At the center of this landscape stands the Church of Santa Prisca, a colossus of pink stone with towers that reach the sky and interiors so richly decorated they seem to breathe gold. Built in the 18th century by miner José de la Borda, Santa Prisca is a symbol of devotion, wealth, and a Baroque aesthetic that found in Taxco one of its most dazzling stages. But while silver founded Taxco, it was human labor that sustained it. In artisan workshops, master silversmiths transformed raw ore into jewelry, cutlery, and ornaments, a craft passed down from generation to generation where European technique met indigenous sensibility, creating something entirely new, the Taxqueño style.